You know, I hate the way Hollywood portrays colleges on television. I mean, my God, they get it so wrong all the time. And you might be wondering, like, well, we all went to college. Every college experience is different. But my college experience, I think, I have the authority, I think, to say that Hollywood portrays colleges wrong because I'm not just going by my own college experience from 2007 to 2013, but I also worked at colleges for a number of years and at different types of colleges. I worked at private schools and I worked at public schools. I worked at small schools and big schools. So I know a lot about college culture, and I know, not only do I know a lot about how college students think and like what they're kind of going through, I think, but also I also can see the behind the scenes things that happen with administration and why things are the way they are. And so I'm going to hopefully by the end of this recording provide some universal tips for college students to help them navigate college in 2021. And granted, I no longer work in the field, and who knows what things are happening in a post-COVID world, but I feel like I'm qualified enough to give some universal tips for college students and parents just to kind of like help y'all navigate the first year. Because the way Hollywood portrays it, it's like it's always like somebody finds a small thing of weed and then like the police come and then the RA's like, you're kicked out of the dorms. Like, I hate how Hollywood portrays it. I remember watching that happen like on a TV show I used to love called Degrassi, The Next Generation, where it was like the whole police came over like a little gram of weed. Like, that's not how it really goes. So we're gonna talk about how actually things go down in college if you like get caught with weed and drinking, and what most colleges look like, because I feel like the way it's portrayed on TV is the worst. And also like the way they portray RAs are the worst. Like, they always portray RAs as like these really evil people who are like, they're smoking on the third floor and they're gonna get kicked out of the dorms. It's like, no, the RAs are really just trying to get people to come to their programs because they really just want people to come and see all the hard work they put into this program, and hopefully somebody comes. That's really what RAs are doing. So we're gonna talk actual what it is like in college, because I don't feel like we had a very good portrayal of college in a while. So yeah. So first, let me state by saying that I was super involved in college. Again, like I did college from '07 to '13. I did my undergrad and master's at the same location. So I was in college for 6 years. And while I was in college, I only had student jobs. So I was like orientation leader and RA, and I had like, jobs with the blogging, and I had jobs with the campus rec. Like, I was super, super involved, and my only jobs were student jobs. And I was like the student leader, student affairs-y person from the beginning. And we're gonna get into student affairs in a minute, because that's a word that only a select people probably know, but I feel like more people should know, especially as they're going off into college, like what is student affairs. So I had all of these student jobs on campus. So I was like the poster child to help remove binge drinking out of college, Like, because I had to do all these trainings for my student affairs jobs, right? So because I do all these trainings, there were certain things that were just drilled in our heads. So I was the poster child to remove binge drinking from a college campus. I could even tell you some of them. So one of the marketing things that they did at my school to try to get people to stop binge drinking was this 013 rule, right? And it was like 0 drinks if you were under 21, 1 drink per hour, and 3 drinks per night. And like, that's it. Because like, let's get it. They know that they can't stop college students from drinking. So it's like, the RA's attitudes now are not like, don't go out drinking. The RA's attitudes are like, hey girl, you look cute tonight. Don't bring that stuff back here. And just remember, 013. Like, that's really more so an RA's attitude. They're not out trying to stop college kids from drinking. They're just trying to state the obvious and tell them how to do it safely, which is really the university's approach to a lot of alcohol and marijuana things now, which is like they know students are going to drink and they know students are going to smoke weed. They're just trying to teach you all how to do it in a safe way. RAs are not concerned about the 19-year-old who gets a bottle of wine from her older sister and brings it back to her dorm room very discreetly and saves it for Wednesday nights when her friend who's in pre-med, who she never sees all week, is finally over and they're gonna watch Gilmore Girls and eat pesto together. Your RA is not looking for that. What RAs are doing is they are literally just walking down the hallway and they're attracted to the noise. The reason they're attracted to the noise, and you might be like, we're just trying to have a party. Yeah, that's the reason your RA is attracted to it, because a party indicates most likely that there is binge drinking. The girls who are having wine and pesto are not yelling chug, chug, chug at the top of their lungs. No, they're literally just having a bottle of wine and having pesto. However, if you are having a lot of noise and music and yelling and clinking bottles, then yes, your RA is going to knock on your door because they have reasons to believe that, one, you're probably disrupting the community. That's another thing that happens, is that a lot of times RAs will get complaints from other residents that are too afraid to confront the person who has the problematic behavior. So they tell the RA, and then the RA is addressing it, and they're like, my RA got me for being too loud. But it's like, actually, your friend down the hall told the RA that you were being too loud, and now the RA is just trying to do their job. So anyway, so the RA hears the noise, and so they're gonna like hear the noise, and if there's clearly like 16 people in the room, then like if they have the opportunity at their school, they're gonna call like the backup RA if they have one, and they're both gonna go in there and they're gonna address it together. And then and usually what happens is the person's gonna slowly open their door and they're gonna be like, oh, you know, like, what's going on? And then like, you're like, y'all are being way too loud and it smells like weed in here. And like, oh, we're not doing anything. And it's like, I can see the red Solo cups. It'd be so much easier if you just open the door. And then so finally, hopefully, they'll open the door. And you open the door and you see a beer pong tables and you see, you know, stuff all over the floor, and then you open the closet and like 3 people from the soccer team fall out of the closet and they're like, please don't tell my coach. And you're like, I'm just doing my job, which is you all cannot have all this alcohol and you all cannot be this loud. And if it's COVID, then there's probably all you people can't even be in this room. So I have to take now all of your information. Please give me your IDs. My supervisor is going to be in touch with you. That's usually more of a realistic portrayal of what an RA is happening to an RA. They were just minding their business, trying to do their job on their round when they came upon a really terrible party on a floor. So if you are, you know, colleges know you drink. I think we just need to stop pretending that, like, students need to stop thinking like the RAs know the students are drinking, the students know the students are drinking, the parents know the students are drinking, like the student affairs professionals know the students are drinking. So let's just all stop pretending about like these fake excuses about that students are giving. Just be open and honest about what's going on. And this is why you need to be open and honest about what's going on. So I guess that's point number 1, right? Is be open and honest about alcohol, because we're going to get into binge drinking culture. We're going to dig into that deeper in a minute, but be honest about it. Because what's going to happen is what Hollywood never portrays in college is the next step after the RA says like, my supervisor is going to be in touch with you, is they're usually going to have a meeting with an individual that lives in the building. What people don't realize about colleges is there are grown people with master's degrees. Some of them have spouses and kids and dogs and cats, and they all live at the college. Most universities have them. Some of them will have like faculty that also live in colleges, but there are people who have master's degrees in higher education student affairs whose job it is to live in buildings with these students and to kind of assist in triage a lot of the trauma that they're dealing with, but also kind of make sure that community standards are in place. So if there was an issue with a certain room consistently having a lot of parties, this is the person who probably is going to address it first. And again, a lot of times people will know that this person exists on their college campus and they're like concerned. They don't always know, like, are they a grad student? Are they a student here? Like, this is a person, let me tell you all, they get a salary from the university. It's not enough. They don't get paid enough for what they do. They don't. But they are a salaried individual who has a full apartment that is provided by the university, meaning they don't live in a dorm room like a dorm room. And yes, I'm saying dorm room for student affairs professionals because let's just stop trying to make residence hall a thing. We tried it. People are not using it. Let's move on, okay? The world calls it a dorm. But this individual lives in the dorms with the students. They have a full apartment. Some of them have 2-bedroom apartments. Some of them have in-unit laundry. Some of them, like, they were made, the residence hall or dorm buildings were made with these individuals in mind to live in the buildings. Most colleges and universities have them. So if a student gets caught drinking, they're probably going to have a meeting with this individual. They're going to have a conversation with them because the conversation, a lot of times students are like, oh my God, I'm going to get kicked out of the dorms. But the conversation is usually like, y'all are being really loud. You're being very disruptive. There was puke on the floor that was really disrespectful to the rest of the community. You all were, being so loud, in fact, that it was not the RA who was addressing it, but somebody came to the RA because they were too afraid to come to you because of how loud you all were being. So let's talk about the fact also that this is the second time in a month that you are in my office for drinking. So how are your classes going? And how often are you partying? Because I have some concerns about maybe your priorities are not in the right track. This is a person who's trying to have this conversation with y'all. This person is really trying to have conversations about, like, is your life together? I'm not saying I'm not your parent and I can't tell you what to do, but you really it might be time to self-reflect and think about your choices, right? Sometimes, and this is where I have a whole argument about lowering the drinking age, but so usually what happens at this point is the student affairs professional or this living professional will give them a sanction if they're found responsible. Sometimes it's like writing a paper. Sometimes it's like doing an alcohol related course. Sometimes it's usually always based in education and trying to rid people of binge drinking. So what students at colleges need to understand is, like, administration is not trying to punish you when they're giving you these things. They're really trying to root out the binge drinking culture, and they're doing it in one way by doing like those marketing campaigns of being like 013 and like 0 drinks per hour and 0 drinks if you're underage and 1 drink per hour and 3 drinks per night. They do it that way, and they also do it through like these sanctions and these programs, and they're trying to beat out that culture. But the problem is it only can go so far. So like, for instance, being an RA, I remember in college when I was an RA that so many times my friends who were also RAs, because we were all friends together, we would all go out and drink together. So it's like we're telling our students, like, all right, now 013, you have a good time. But then there's also these super terrible 2010 pictures of us drinking in bars. And, it's just like, yes, exactly. So it's embarrassing. I think about some of these pictures. I actually had to reach out to some of my friends from college being like, oh my God, it's time for us to delete these from Facebook. Can we just not pretend it didn't happen, but there's no need for it to be on the internet now in 2021, right? Like, let's just delete all these college photos of embarrassment. So we did a lot of that over. RAs would go out and we would drink. And here's the problem. Let's talk about student affairs culture. As live-in staff members, we would get together and drink. I know live-in staff. I've worked at institutions where I was not a live-in staff member, and live-in staff members would get together and drink. And if we're going to talk about student affairs culture, going to these student affairs conferences and getting together and drink. So if we're going to talk about rooting out binge drinking culture, we got to talk about the fact that we are literally beating these words and numbers down students' throats, while at the same time going to these conferences and partaking, and all of our events revolve around alcohol. And what does that say about trying to root out binge drinking culture on college campuses when we can't even get together without, having alcohol at the center of events? Like I've gone to so many conferences where like the event was at the hosted at a bar. So I don't know. I just think it might be time for us to reevaluate that if we're going to talk about binge drinking. If we're going to talk about trying to get the students from stop binge drinking, then we need to talk about us doing it at the top, right? Okay, that's all I'm saying. And then you might make the argument like, well, we're teaching these students all these arguments like, do as I say, not as I do. Let me tell you what happens with do as I say, not as I do. I got a great example for you. So I remember, again, being that RA, going out and telling my residents 013, yet being that same RA going out at the bars. But even when we went out to the bars, we were still pretty safe. But I definitely found out where it ends when we went to an off-campus party. And that's where my student leadership hat just no longer existed. So we go to this off-campus party. And one of my friends, who is also one of my fellow student leaders, orientation leader person, RA person, he's passed out drunk on a couch. And I remember having a conversation with him. And I don't remember if he said the word hospital or if I asked him if he wanted to go to the hospital, and he mumbled yes. But there was definitely an agreement that he was going to the hospital, right? So I go to the guy whose apartment it is. And I say, hey, he needs to go to the hospital. We need to call 911. And he said, you can't call an ambulance here. No, you can't call an ambulance here. You all need to get out of here. You all need to call a taxi. Yes, this was before Uber, so that totally now tells you how old I am. But you all need to call a taxi and get out of here. So we call a taxi and we go to the hospital. I'm gonna give my friend fluids, and he ends up being fine. But when I think about that night, I'm not mad that the guy told us to not call an ambulance and to instead call a taxi. I think back to how much it felt like a reminder, oh yeah, we can't stop this party. We can't stop this party. What's the most covert way to get the passed out guy out of here so that the party doesn't stop? And it was to get a taxi. Getting an ambulance meant the whole party would come to a halt. Getting a taxi meant we could just sneak out and the party could keep going. And I think back to what if at that point we all decided that my friend who was passed out was the most important person in the room? What if that is how we stamp out binge drinking culture, right? We have to all decide that the person whose health and safety is most at risk is always the most important person in the room. And if college students can agree to that, then maybe we could stamp out some of the very unhealthy binge drinking cultures we see on college campuses. And so one of the main things I want also students to know, and I'm doing my points way out of line, but this is another point that I want to make about colleges and for college students to know, is it's so important to read your college handbook and see if there's any amnesty rules or amnesty laws, because so many times your college might have some rules where it's if you report a sexual assault, or you see some guy taking some girl in the back room and you're concerned about what he's doing, and you tell the RA that like nobody's gonna get in trouble, right? It's like colleges don't, they, at the end of the day, because colleges all know that students drink, you have to remember that like they're more concerned about unhealthy binge drinking behaviors. They're concerned about the sexual assaults. They're concerned about like people who get violent when they drink. So it's so important to read your college handbooks, because they might have some amnesty rules that if you report unhealthy behavior that you see on your college campus, that there might be amnesty for the people involved who report. Again, your RA is not looking for the girls who are drinking one bottle of wine while watching Gilmore Girls and eating pesto. Your RA is concerned about the people who are engaging in binge drinking unsafe behaviors. And the last point I want to make sure college students know before they head off to college, when it comes to like all these things that you're not going to remember at your orientation, it's so important to know the difference between a private resource and a confidential resource. And who are they, and what are they, and what can they do for you? So a private resource is a person who like is going to be like, I would say like your squad of people, and usually this person has like advisor or coordinator at the end of their name. So if you like have an EOP counselor, or if you have like an academic counselor, or a coach might be one, your resident hall director, so like again like that person who lives in the building who has the master's degree, that's another individual who might be one. And these people are, it's so great to know all of your private resources names, like your squad of people, like who's going to help me with my financial aid, who's going to help me with academic advising, who's going to help me when I'm having a problem with my roommate, right? And it's good to develop a good relationship with one of them, because one of these days you're going to have a really bad day where your whole life is falling apart, right? Your boyfriend's acting up, and you got 3 midterms coming up, and you know home is really rough, and you don't know what you're going to do. And having a good relationship with one of those people that you can just have that honest conversation with, and then maybe that person could then maybe help you sort through your life. Okay, you've got 3 midterms due. Let's talk about when you're going to study for them. Okay, your boyfriend acting up, so let's go ahead and just turn the phone off, or let's put him on mute. Let's say like I'm in Miss Baker's office until 6. I'll call you back. And just put him on mute. Let's focus on getting your study guide situation ready for your midterms. Let's talk about when you're going to go to financial aid to get this hold off your account. And let's also make sure that you're going to follow up with me as well. Now, remember, I don't know what's going on with the boyfriend. He seems a little bit needy. I want to make sure you know that here is the number to the counseling office. I'm not saying you're in an unhealthy relationship, but I think he's kind of needy. So I just wanted to make sure that if you want to talk to me about it, we can. But here's also a counselor that you can talk to if you want to talk to somebody who's confidential, right? And so a confidential resource is different. A confidential resource is somebody who's not required to tell the university of like a situation that is Title IX, sexual assault, suicide ideation. So if you tell a private resource, like I've been sexually assaulted or I have suicidal ideation, if you tell a private resource that, they are required to tell someone above them, and it's usually going to create a trickle-down effect of responses that you may or may not be ready for. So if you inform your RA that you've been sexually assaulted, they're going to tell their supervisor, who's going to tell somebody confidential or something. And you're probably going to start getting emails being like, hey, we heard that you reported a sexual assault. Here's some resources for you. So-and-so wants to follow up with you. Like it's going to trigger a string of responses. Now, if you tell a confidential resource that you were sexually assaulted, they will not be required to tell the university of these things. So this person could be, now it's important to note that every college is different. Here's an example of some that I've seen at colleges. But everyone is different. So it's so important to look at into your college and figure out who are your confidential resources. Some examples I have seen at colleges that have been a little bit consistent though are like reverends and ministers. I have also seen like counselors or therapists. Sometimes police officers have served as those roles. Title IX coordinators have served in those roles. Ombudspersons, which is a person that a lot of college students don't know about, which I'm going to tell you about. But ombudspersons are people that also can sometimes be a confidential resource. So again, it's very important to know who your confidential resources are on your college campus. So that way, if you tell a confidential resource, you're just telling them because you just need to tell a person. Whereas a private resource, it's important to know that even if you have a great relationship with them, they're still required to probably tell someone above them that you're reporting a sexual assault or a suicide ideation or any other very serious thing. So that's super important. And I'm going to finish up this, I guess, rounding up to about 30 minutes or so of hopefully helpful information. But what is an ombudsperson? So an ombudsperson is a person on a college campus who, if you find yourself having a conflict with somebody, they are a great person to go to help you resolve a conflict that doesn't involve like university response. So let's say a great small line example is, let's say you don't drink and you have a roommate who does drink and you feel like that your roommate's drinking is impacting you. You might be able to go to an ombudsperson and they can do conflict management that involves you working out the situation with your roommate. And it may not have to get like the RA and the RD and administration involved if you take it like through conflict management with the ombudsperson. Now, again, I can't guarantee this. Every college is different, but that could be an avenue of like resolving conflict without using like an authoritarian response to it. You're like, look, I don't want to get I don't want to get my friend in trouble, but their drinking is now causing a problem for us as like roommates. So I'm going to go with the ombudsperson and maybe we can like work this out together and continue to live together in a peaceful way. So another great reason for the ombudsperson is, let's say if you feel like you have been wronged by a person at the university, they might be a person that you might want to go to as well, is the ombudsperson. So that is pretty much, I guess, my thing on colleges and things that you need to know. I guess the ultimate guide for college students and just kind of the inside looks from an administration perspective. Again, I not only my own college experience am I relying on, but also just my years of working in res life for 8 years exactly. Each time I've worked in res life, I really enjoyed it. I will also say that, like, real talk, I'm glad that I'm done with it. It was no longer a good fit for me. I just turned into a person I no longer recognized, because student affairs is incredibly it's cultish. I mean, we were chanting 013, man. And I remember chanting like I remember a call and a response from one of my supervisors from when I was an RA, and it'd be like, Hugo, it's not a dorm, and we had to be like, it's a residence hall. Like it was it's a whole cult. Like, student affairs is a cult and a half. Like, I'm sorry, I should not say that. I'm sorry. No. Let me back up. The truth is, student affairs gave me the best friends I've ever had. It gave me the toughest lessons I needed to learn. I met the most amazing students I could ever imagine. And I also just I was challenged in ways I was not expecting. So that's all I wanted to say on the guide to college from an insider's perspective. Please don't binge drink. Please read your student handbooks. And trust me, your RA, I promise you, they are not out to get you. They just want you to be responsible as you navigate the world. Peace out. Bye.